The journey into homesteading is as much about building a life as it is about building a living space. It's a path that leads to self-sufficiency, a closer connection to the earth, and a deeper understanding of what it means to provide for your family and yourself. At Red Ridge Farm, we know that starting this journey can feel daunting, but with the right mindset and preparation, it can become the most rewarding adventure of your life. Today, we're going to talk about the essential first steps to consider as you begin your homesteading journey. Let's get going. Hello and welcome to the Pray Just Plant podcast, the show that talks about growing a garden, a homestead, a healthy family, and most importantly, growing closer to God. I'm your host, Crystal Media, owner of the Red Ridge Farm Homestead, where our mission is to help women of faith find the courage to grow healthy food for their family while building a closer relationship with our Lord and Savior. That's you. Don't let the world hold you back. Pray Just Plant. Hello, fellow growers, and welcome to the Pray Just Plant podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Media, and today we're going to discuss pretty much Homesteading 101, how to lay the groundwork for your first year goals and really starting your purposeful journey. Starting in homesteading, it can seem like a really daunting task. And one of the things that I utilize to help you guys grow a little more efficiently is the purposeful growing journey. And that purposeful growing journey is stages that you can take to reach the purposeful life. In those stages, we talk about the first stage is your just grow stage, figuring out your goals, what you need to be doing. And this stage can be used and utilized in every single stage of the growing journey, which are purposeful kitchen, purposeful home, purposeful garden, purposeful homestead, and purposeful life. Today we're talking about the homestead. So let's talk about how we can build those first goals or the first things that we need to be thinking about, our mindset and preparations that will help us have a rewarding adventure through the first steps of building a homestead. And to really be thinking about and to help you guys figure out what are the things that you need to figure out. Because one of the big problems that I had, and maybe it was because I kind of homesteaded on the by the seat of my pants mentality. I mean, I've grown up by that mentality my whole life. And now that I've become a mother and a homesteader and a grower and a gardener and a Christian and all of these things that is just so full, I need to figure out a plan. And sometimes I know there's people out there that like to figure out plans too. And I want you to avoid that problem of just jumping in and trying to swim, but you don't know how to swim. And that's how I felt on my growing journey. We kind of we just had our first child and I wanted to better our food. I've grown up in a rural area. I grew up on a cattle ranch. I know where my food comes from. I know how important it was, but I wasn't eating the good food that was around me. I was eating junk because I was young and on my own for a while, and junk is cheaper. Why is that? I have no idea, but that's what we were eating. And I didn't have all the cooking skills that I thought I needed or that I needed to have because when I was growing up, I was the tomboy. I was the girl that liked to be outside. I was the oldest of my three sisters, or my two other sisters, so three of us all together. I was the one that helped my father. I was the one out in the tractor. I was the one riding the horses. I was the one outside doing stuff. So taking care of my home and taking care of inside just wasn't as prevalent. And so when I started my homesteading journey, it was like this other thing, but I just thought, I know how to raise chickens and I know how to do this and I know how to do that. I'm just going to jump into it. But there's a lot of pitfalls that I jumped over and had to go through because I didn't have the right mindset and I wasn't prepared for some of the things that happened. So I don't want that for you. And so today in this episode, that's what I want to do is just break it down for you and really help you to dive into your growing journey. And this could be really for anything that you're wanting to get started. Maybe you're wanting to add a new animal. These tips that I'm going to be sharing with you will be helpful there. Maybe you're wanting to learn something or set up some goals in your kitchen. These tips are going to help you there because they're all going to develop on top of each other. So it's going to be really helpful. And if you want to learn more about the purposeful growing journey and how you could work yourself through it and the tips that are in each area, as well as the place where it would show you exactly what you would need to learn in each of these areas and what I have to provide for you in each of these areas, as well as tips and ideas of when you should be moving on to the next stage and more, then I will put the link in the description below, Purposeful Growing Journey. So be sure to click on that and it'll take you directly there. So today we are talking about, to wrap all that introduction back up, today we're going to be talking about your first goals will help you build the essential first steps you need to start your homesteading journey. The first one I have for you, and I think this can go anywhere in life, is start small. The dream of a fully self-sufficient homestead can be overwhelming at the onset. Begin with small, manageable projects that offer quick success. Whether it's a small vegetable garden, now I've told you a vegetable garden can be 3 jars of herbs on your table. It doesn't have to be huge. Or just a few backyard chickens, or even consider these small victories will help build your confidence and skills for larger projects. That's why I developed the Purposeful Growing Journey as it is. You start with your goals, and you start in the kitchen, which the kitchen is really essentially every part of your growing journey, so why not start there? But you're moving forward in incremental steps. So start small. If you want to get out of your home, one of the biggest things, and onto a place with land, maybe you're renting, maybe you have a purpose of your home, maybe you're wanting to expand. The first step isn't to go looking for land, it's to start a budget. It's to start saving money for that new land. If you're wanting to experiment with chickens or get your first animal, start with one that's small and manageable. Really consider how much time that thing is going to take from you so that you can really focus in on that and learn from that skill and then build from there. We do not need to get the dream syndrome. I don't know what else you would call it. It's like where you picture, and a lot of times we get this nowadays because we have Instagram, we have all these social media things. We can see now what the farm 2 states away is doing and how well they're doing and all the things, and we get fixated on that. That's what we need. But the truth is, just as the name of this podcast implies, we need to pray, and then we just need to plant. Maybe it's one thing we need to plant, but we just need to get started. And starting small will take out the overwhelm. It'll take out the pressure. It'll take all of that stress away so that you can find exactly those little victories, and then you can build confidence and move on to bigger and better, what you see as bigger and better things. Because starting small, I think, is the best. Personally, it's the best. And I tell that to everyone growing. I tell that to myself 3 times a day when I'm sitting there laying out, okay, projects are this, and I want to do all these things. Spring is here on the homestead, and it's like, I have this long list of things, and the best thing to do is go to the first one that's small, and then the next step, the next thing is not lay out all the things you got to do for that, but just lay out the next one. What is the next one that will get this project started? What is that next step? And do it. Then figure out the next step and then do it. Don't sit there and always, I'm telling myself this too, because I love to make plans. Don't lay out the big, huge plan. Just lay out the next step, and then you do it, and then lay out the next. And everything will move forward, because even if you take the biggest project and break it down into each individual step, you're going to be amazed at how much you can accomplish. My next tip for you is find your homesteading purpose. I talk about this a lot in the Just Grow stage. In the Just Grow stage, I tell you, find your why. Ask yourself, what are you hoping to achieve through homesteading? Is it food independence, a desire to live more sustainably, or perhaps a means to connect more deeply with your faith, with God, or bringing your family together and doing projects together and building a relationship with your family? Your purpose will guide your decisions, from the land you cultivate to the lifestyle choices you make. So why are you growing your own food? Why are you choosing to start a homestead? Finding your purpose will be your compass. I love when in everything, just like I said, the purposeful growing path, the purposeful growing journey, that is a momentum. It's not just homesteading. I call it the purposeful growing journey because it is a momentum. It is a movement. It is an action. God requires of us action. We need action. Actions show us who we are, show others who we are. So we need little actions to build and create purpose. We need little actions to move forward on our growing journey. We need little actions to build and homestead. But if we don't have a compass of where and which way those actions need to go, like the Bible is our compass to God, if we don't have a compass of our why, we don't have a compass showing us, okay, what project is the small project? What project is the most important project? What project, or do we want chickens or do we want goats? Or do we want a small garden or a large garden? Or do we want broccoli over cauliflower? I mean, it can be that simple, because if your goal is self-sufficiency, which, I've talked about that before, self-sufficiency isn't all about yourself. Self-sufficiency to me means being sufficient away from other places that the majority of people go for that supply. So being self-sufficient means I don't go to the grocery store for all my vegetables. I don't go to the grocery store for all of my meat. I have other things, other places to go, but there is a community of people. It's not all about self. I wish they could come up with another word, but self-sufficient still works, because you're being separate from the majority into the smaller community of, I need apples. Instead of going to my grocery store to get apples, I'm going to try the farmer's market. I'm going to try my neighbor down the road. I'm going to try growing them myself. There's these other avenues, and that's what I truly believe self-sufficiency is. I should do a whole podcast on self-sufficiency and my definition of it. But I got sidetracked. Where was I? Oh, right. The compass. You need a compass, and that's going to guide you into the levels of the need and want to do, which leads into my next tip, is that if you don't have an understanding of your family's needs and wants on the homestead, or in why you want to homestead, or what you want to get out of homesteading, you're not going to really have that compass. So understanding your family's needs and wants is because a homestead is a family affair. It is not going to be just you, because you are creating food for your whole family. Now it might be just you if you are just starting out and you're ready to go out and grow your own food and then develop a family. That's amazing. But you're going to be thinking about that future family, aren't you? Homesteading is a family affair, and each member will have their own hopes and concerns. We need to discuss what everyone is excited about, any worries they might have. Aligning your family's needs and wants early on ensures that your homestead supports everyone. So when it came to my family and us, I started Homestead 20 plus years ago. My family was very small. I just had my oldest son, so he's 21, so 21 years ago. And he was very little, but the biggest thing I needed to do was I needed to figure out my plan around having a toddler. My husband also worked. My husband also said he wanted horses. We have a small property, but he wanted horses. And I had to take his concerns into weight, as well as my lack of time, because I was taking care of a toddler. So when I started out, yes, it was a little haphazardly, but we started out with chickens my mother-in-law gave us, and a very small garden, as small as it was like I would call it a postage stamp size garden compared to the garden I have now. But it was small. It was like one raised bed. It was small. It was fun to get out there and do, but we had just a few things. But the biggest thing, and I wish I would have done this earlier, is it didn't always have to be about me growing garden. I could fulfill the needs and wants of my family if I knew what they were, and two, if I knew what they were, I could go out and outsource them from other people. It didn't all have to be on my back. So maybe there's something out there that's like you really, really, really want to get into gardening and you want to build your homestead and get all these animals, but you're wondering if that is a need or a want for your family. I've always really wanted a milk cow. I don't know why. That was something that, to me, it felt like if I have a milk cow, then I'm truly homesteading, right? I mean, that's the essence of a homestead. Having the milk cow with all this milk and making cheese and yogurt and all of these things. But as my family grew, and of course my husband wanting horses, we couldn't get the milk cow right away, which has been, in a way, I'm going to say, a little bit of God's guidance, because two of my sons are lactose intolerant or have trouble with cow's milk. And having the lack of property and weighing what my husband wanted and what I wanted a dairy animal, we ended up on dairy goats, which actually aligns with our family so much more because, one, I feel really confident going out and dealing with my goats. They're smaller. I don't worry about getting kicked. I don't worry about all the pressures of like this big, huge farm animal that I'm sitting under milking. I mean, you get very personal with a dairy animal. And that was one worry that I had with the cow, and that's why I was always hesitant about it. I always wanted to find just the right cow, which, that's really hard to do. You pretty much have to train the right cow or train the right animal. But having the dairy goats have just been sent from God because their milk has been more beneficial for my family, more digestible for my family. No, I don't make a lot of cheese, and I don't feel the pressure to make a lot of cheese because goat milk cheese is just not something that my kids enjoy. I do like making the yogurt, but it's taken that cow that was my dream of 8 gallons a day. Can you imagine that? 8 gallons a day with the breed that I wanted to get. Do I get 8 gallons a week about with my dairy goats? And that's enough for us. That's enough for me to sell, enough for us to create the things that I want out of it and to drink it. And it was what we needed as a family. So you need to take those ideas into alignment first. I only have a couple more tips for you, but the next is assess your resources. You have resources, either education, either how money you have in a banking account, how your skills in maybe building a fence. You have resources. And when you take stock of what you currently have, what you need, and what you can build or repurpose, then you'll be able to know what you need to move forward. This includes not just physical resources like land and tools, but also skills, knowledge, and community connections. Community connections are important. Knowing what you have can help you plan more effectively and avoid unnecessary expenses. My husband is on me all the time about this because every spring when I get baby chicks, I can never seem, now this is just an example, but I want you to think about it. I can never seem to find the feeders that I used last year. I try to clean them and I try to put them away and I never find them. I don't know where they go. And so every year I'm always buying a new feeder, and my husband noticed this. He's like, didn't you buy one of those last year? And didn't you buy one of those the year before? So finally I found out that they had gotten, when I cleaned out my shed, I was putting them in a certain spot, but the kids somehow were like knocking them behind this big cupboard. And so I found them all, and that's been amazing. But that's the kind of idea I'm talking about. Think about the things you already have, and not just in tools and chick feeders, but think about your land. If you do have land, what you do have. How much area do you have for a garden? Do you have the room for adding bees or all the other things that you think you want and need? Do you have the skills that you need? Because the next tip from me to you is you need to educate yourself. Don't sit and wait for the homestead to come to you. Educate yourself and bring the homestead to you. If you're worried about, oh man, my yard is so small, or I don't even have a yard, but I want a homestead. I want to do this. I want to get started. The first place you can start is educating yourself. Read, go to classes, listen to podcast episodes as you're listening to right now. You're doing great. That is an amazing step into starting and growing on your growing journey. You need to educate yourself. The learning curve in homesteading can be steep, and I'm talking about like with lots of animals or something like that. But thankfully, it's also part of the joy. Seeking out blogs, books, workshops, and other homesteaders to learn from their experiences. Each piece of knowledge is a step towards self-sufficiency. So one of the big things that I did, yes, I have the 6 acres, but I didn't have the time. I didn't have the knowledge to do a big garden. So I had that little posted stamp garden, right? But that summer, I worked for a lady that did a market garden, and I worked for her for a small amount of money, but mostly produce, so that I could bring produce home. And she let me take my son with me, which was amazing. So I had him in a little backpack carrier in her garden. And she taught me about gardening. She taught me about soil. She taught me about weeding. She taught me about so many things, and hands-on experiences, even if it's not in your own garden, are important. Find someone you can connect to. Find someone that you, thankfully in this day and age, like this was 20 years ago, YouTube was not a thing. Thankfully in this day and age, you can get on YouTube and you can learn so much. But the biggest thing that I find that is a trap about YouTube is that we get the glitter syndrome, and we see these big dreams these other people are doing, and we think that is unattainable. And I talked about that before with the starting small. It is attainable, especially if you use these tips. These tips will help you build that. And it's attainable now. It's not something you have to wait for. If you want the education, start educating yourself. You want the real life thing without a garden, go help the neighbor down the road who does have a garden. Just say, hey, I would love to learn from you. Can I help you weed? And just start a conversation with them. Go visit farms. If you're going to a farmer market and purchasing from a farmer's market, ask the farmer if you can come tour their farm. Ask the farmer if you can take them out to dinner and say, hey, I want to learn from you. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know how to do these things. People are people, and they're not unattainable. Create a relationship with someone and the whole world will open up. I say this all the time because one of the big tips that I have for people who are buying animals is if you don't connect with who you're buying from, don't buy an animal from them. Buy an animal from someone you connect with and can have a decent conversation with and feel like they want to listen to you and will be helpful to you, because that person, even though you bought that animal from them, is a resource that you can reach back to. So don't buy, especially when you're first growing and first homesteading, don't buy an animal from someone that doesn't want to teach you. Buy an animal from someone who does want to teach you, and I don't understand people that don't want to teach you, but because it's that livelihood of that animal. If that buyer wants to teach you, and that ensures that animal is going to have a better life, and I just don't get it. So the next tip I have for you is plan for sustainability. Consider how your homesteading practices can be sustainable in the long term. This includes choosing renewable energy resources, conserving water, building soil health, planning for biodiversity, and a sustainable homestead is more resilient and environmental and responsible. That's why I think it's so important to think about permaculture when you're first starting out. And I teach you how to implement permaculture in your garden, on your homestead, in your life. I mean, permaculture is a culture. It's a way you look at the world. Believing in God is a way you work at the world. You cannot pray to a God that is merciful and not be merciful. You cannot pray to a God who loves you and not love others. You cannot pray to a God who prays for his enemies. I mean, Jesus prayed for Judas, the man who sent him to the cross, and not pray for your enemies. Permaculture is the same thing. It is a livelihood. It is a culture that helps you see the world the way God created the world. And it helps you tap into nature. So when you first learn, and I'm coming out with something very simple, a 101 guide that will help you get permaculture very easily. It doesn't have to be reading the big, huge Bill Mollison book. I know it's huge and heavy, but it can be simple. Permaculture is simple. If you just look at it as you're tapping into the systems of that God made, it's very simple. God made everything simple. Think about sustainability when you are thinking about your goals. So if you are thinking about adding a cow, but you know your property doesn't have the space for a cow, maybe that's not there yet. Maybe you could still be learning about a cow or learning about the things that you need to do, but that's not there yet. The last thing that I have for you, and I think I've covered it a lot through all of this, is connect with a community. And I've talked about it in several different ways. Homesteading is not meant to be a solitary endeavor. Connect with local homesteading or gardening groups, attend community seed swaps, or join online forums. These connections can offer invaluable advice, support, and camaraderie. That is my hope here at the Pray Just Plant podcast. In fact, we do have a community, and you can join the community by just simply going over the website, grabbing some of my tools, utilizing them, and becoming part of our newsletter. And in that newsletter, you are asked to join a private Facebook group where we build a community. I encourage people to connect with each other. I encourage and jump in and teach different lessons. But a community is important, and a community can be your community of your family. Don't start homesteading without the support and the connection of your family. It may take a while to persuade someone, but I truly believe that you are a married couple and you do things jointly. Next, build the community around you. As I mentioned, buy animals from people you trust and would want to build a relationship with, because that could be your person you call back when there's an emergency. That can be the person you call with those animal questions. And go to the farmers markets. Connect with the farmers there. They are people just like you, and they'd love to teach and help you in any way they can. If they don't, then move on to someone else. But they are out there. There's people out there that do want to help you. In fact, myself, as I said, you can join our community, but you can also just come to the Pray Just Plant podcast. We're on season 14. There is 13 more seasons that you could be listening to. There is a whole blog that you can be reading. There's so much more and so much information out there for you to connect with and people to connect with. In fact, you can contact me if you want to, and those links will be on my website. So starting your homesteading journey is an excellent and exciting step toward a life of fulfillment, self-sufficiency, and connection with nature. By starting small, finding your purpose, understanding your family's needs, planning for sustainability, you lay the foundation for a thriving homestead. Remember, every big dream begins with just a few steps. Every journey begins with a first step. Who was that? Confucius that said, every journey begins with the first step. But I am here at Red Ridge Farm to guide and support you as you embark on this remarkable journey. So come on over, join our Purposeful Growing journey to gain the insight, the encouragement, and the community you need to turn your homesteading dreams into reality. Let's grow together, one step at a time. This week's episode is brought to you by the Red Ridge Farms Builds ebook. This ebook was designed to help you get building on the homestead and even designing your homestead with permaculture principles. Grab your copy by going to www.redridgefarm.org/getbuilding or click on the link in the description below.